So today we're going to talk about how to create compelling service strategies. I think just going back on why we chose this topic, actually, it wasn't us. It was a discussion with our advisory board saying that there's still a lot of service leaders and service organizations that, especially nowadays, they struggle getting support, getting budget for often digital projects, and it's difficult. Yeah? So what most of the people said is, what you better do is create a more complete, comprehensive, but definitely compelling strategy, not just to get your budget, but also you need a lot of collaboration from different functions, other functions in your organization to make your service strategy really work. So that's the background. I'm going to take you through the agenda of the day. And a little warning, if anybody doesn't want to be on the pictures, etc., let us know. We'll during the day we'll cut you out. This is the program of this year. This is the first one is how to create compelling service strategies and digital growth strategies. The second one is then talking about the challenge of, let's say, how to make the service transformations, and again, digital transformations, how to make them more successful. So there was a general fact given that most projects, digitalization projects, they're considered not successful. Actually, it's a staggering percentage. It's 70% that are supposed to be not giving the results that they were expecting. So there, the big question that's going to be in Amsterdam in the beginning of June is, okay, how can we make these transformations more successful? Then the third quarter, that's going to be in London or near London. It's dealing again with the topic of shortages, skill shortages in service organizations. However, not just the topic of, okay, how do you better recruit, retain, keep people happy, but also shouldn't we consider new business models that need less or maybe no field engineers at all. Yeah? So that's going to be an interesting session there. And the last session that will be in December will be in Milano. It's going to talk about the next level of, or the more sophisticated services. Typically, we call them digital services because they're highly digitally enabled. How to sell those, and that is for a lot of organizations that are used to the more traditional service contracts is still a big challenge. So this is the whole program for the year. Then the objective of today is we're going to have a presentation. I'm going to introduce Michael in a moment. The research that we have done will shed some light on what are the reasons and what are the thoughts about creating compelling service strategies. And then we're going to, during the day, we're going to discuss it. A lot of exchange of experience, I would say, in a structured, facilitated way. And tomorrow morning, we're going to deal with also a real case, the case of Sulzer. To make it come alive, let's say. So we just had the lunch with everybody. Then Michael will do the first presentation. We'll then do 2 roundtables of discussion. So the first roundtable, we will identify and discuss about the factors that make a strategy compelling, interesting, convincing? What do you need to think of? And the second one is, how do you align that vision for your service business with the strategy and the vision that your company as a whole has? And how do you create that stakeholder buy-in, which is so necessary? Tonight we have an evening program with a nice dinner. And then tomorrow we would have a bit of a recap of what we have done then today. And then we'll start the case of Sulzer, where Rodrigo is going to tell his story, and we're all going to find a solution for the case, right? Okay, and then we end with a lunch again before we all go off to our respective countries and offices again. So introducing Michael Gensler. Now we have to see how we can get you on the
the camera already.
Michael has obviously a background as a service leader, working for many companies, but one of them was Bosch Rexroth. And nowadays, also very involved in startup companies. And that is also a very interesting perspective, like how to pitch, how to sell your business idea, your vision, and your strategy. So we're going to learn a lot from you. You have been leading the research, and you'll show us what you found. Yeah? Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you, Hilbrand. So welcome from my side. I spent a long time in the service environment. I created service business. I took over service business, and I mistreated my service business when I ran a plant, and I had to sell machines, and the machines were backlogged, and so I was also not respectful to my service business. So I can give you a 360 degree on the service side, and I'm very happy to present now the research that we did. It really confirmed a lot of things that I experienced. So I'm happy that there were no big things that stuck out, but there's also some things we need to look at from a definition point and also from a strategic point. So we had this topic, how to create a compelling, and the importance is here on the compelling digital strategy. Okay, I thought you were snipping with your finger, but it was your bottle. The compellingness of the strategy is important because you need to sell it. And it might be obvious to you, but if it's not obvious to anybody you talk to, you missed something. So we focused on some of the data material, but we also focused on how to make it compelling. So we had two things that we looked at. We aimed at the financial potential, the revenue potential of the service business, but we also looked at how to write the strategy and how to sell the strategy internally and externally. Because many strategies or many service strategies, they sound great internally in the service organization, but when you present it to the next level, the C-suite, they don't get it, they don't want to hear it. And if you sell it to your customer, it might be the same. So it needs to be really a 360 degree experience to sell it. So first, some clarifying definitions. So what is a service strategy? What is behind a growth strategy? And since we have the digital component here, and we know the world is getting more digital, we need to also include this in the service strategy. It's not only focused on revenue and profitability, it's also focused on how we do it. What kind of tools do we need? How do we enable our organization to come up with digital products? What technologies do we need? So we look at AI, at IoT, we look at business models. What kind of business models enable our new services? It's not transactional anymore. And in the end, what's the result? How do we drive efficiency? How do we make it a convincing business case? So what's in it for us as a company? What's in it for the customers? And from my startup perspective, we always need to come from the customer first. Not ivory tower development, but from the customer. So this customer focus is probably the most powerful thing that we can bring into the service strategy. And how do we deliver it? How do we deliver the value of our strategy? Internally, and I'm talking to the higher ups, to the C-suite or the bosses, but also externally. And maybe the order should be externally first and then internally. Because if we have evidence from the customer that our service strategy sticks, we can easily sell this to our higher ups. So how did we benchmark the growth opportunities? We looked at the maturity model that you probably all know, where you go from reactive, preventive, predictive, proactive, and your organization reaches different maturity levels according to your enablement, to your vision, your strategy, and your investment. And we split this in 3 peer groups to cluster the results. So we had the reactive, preventive peer group, where everything is more transactional, and it's not really strategic. There's obviously shades, but then the first step was to go from reactive to predictive. So making this experience plannable, recurring, and having a longer lifetime value with the customer. So it's not I buy a spare part and that's it, and I don't follow up anymore. We have a yearly contract extending out, and we have a stronger relationship with the customers. And then the proactive approach, where we change the business perspective. We go from a product business to a customer business related service. So it's no longer related to our own product. We look deep inside the customer and offer services that go beyond our products. So that's for the clarification. And we also looked at different strategies. Some of you might recognize this as the Ansoff matrix, but we made a small little change. We put the services there instead of the products. And we plotted the peer groups into the respective boxes. So if you are in your existing services, in the existing markets, what do? You have a more market penetration effort. You don't take the risk to branch out to do new things in either direction, new service products or new markets. And then you can expand out, adding new services to your same market, or you can go up and do a market development, add new markets. And the most risky path would be to go from the peer group 1 into the diversification. So you have risk on the product side and risk on the market side. So what did we find out? So first of all, we have a lot of people in the peer group 1. There's a lot of potential out there, because in peer group 1, you are in your market with your existing products. You can do a lot more, but we also had about 1/3 of the group already matured into peer group 1 and peer group 2 and peer group 3, which is already a good sign because there is proven success out there. And we looked in particular at the best in class, the top 25%, to really separate out the good stuff. And here's the result, the financial result. We see always that the service revenue growth is higher than the overall company growth. So service is a major contributor to the growth of the company. And in many organizations, it's not recognized and not respected. So, and we also saw that the investment in digital solutions grows with your maturity, which is normal. You would expect that your margin goes down with a higher investment. But that's not the case because the highest maturity also has the highest margin. So, yeah. Here, 54%, the highest margin maturity. And the other nice part is the predictability, the recurring service revenue grows with your maturity. So you go from a very low recurring service revenue, mostly related to service level agreements, to a almost 1/3 of your business you can plan. You have every year recurring. So it takes out the guesswork from your service business, from your business plan. And also for the plan for the whole business, because they can rely on the revenue and the profitability that comes from the service business. And if you sell machines, you can't really predict your machine sales. But if you can predict your service sales, you have a good foundation for your business. And last but not least, the service annual growth in peer group 3 is the highest of them all, 13.5%. It's really a substantial growth driver. So when we look at the key takeaways, higher maturity is higher service growth, mostly also higher margin growth, with the exception of the predictive, where we do the initial high investment to have the digitization ready. The digitization leads to higher growth and higher recurring revenue. Those are the key takeaways. So you're on the right track. And now it's stuck. Sure. I will. Yes. Yeah, we have some data behind it where we see where it comes from. And then you see, okay, this business related is really more contractual, long-term contracts, and you go in, you take over certain processes, certain businesses, and that's how you create this business, this recurring. No, this is a share of, that's the share of the overall business. So you have a more plannable share. So the orange grows up very slowly. You have so much more recurring service. Probably the recurring part is not big. No, it's 35% of the overall service business, so it's a significant portion. And the growth rate is the overall growth rate from year to year. So you have 13% growth, which is already, it's almost a stress factor for a service organization because you have a lot of people that you have to manage and you have to support this. So there's other factors that restrict this. Can you click this? Oh, I'm not the only one that can click forward. So we can elaborate. Here we go. So peer group 1, not surprising, a big split between the gross profit. 2/3 of the profit is from the service. When I was at Rexroth, we had 90% of the profit. It was only 10% in that time period. So we were overwhelmingly contributing to the gross margin of the company. And it was a very critical phase. Luckily, we survived this. The majority of the profitability comes from this. Yep. Comes from the spare parts here. They have the highest profit margin. And that's not unexpected. The full service contracts, they're typically a mixture between spare parts and field service hours. So that's kind of the average of the both of them, but it makes it already more plannable if you have service contracts. So that's the first step to recurring revenue. And if you're able to sell equipment with service contracts right from the start, you can already increase your recurring revenue share. And a lot of when you think about the copy machines, they all come with a service contract. So they have this tested out, and all of them, all the different manufacturers have the same concept. When we go to peer group 2, in our group here in the top 25, we see a small decrease in the profit margin split. Could be because of the investment, because we have this increase in investment in digitization. But we also see, and here I use this, oops. We see the predictive services kicking in with a very high and nice margin. So we have initial investment, but we also generate a good margin. And we have the repeatability of the business. And we get a lot of insights. So this is our first path into the data that your customers have. And there you can create new data models with all the insights that go beyond the first predictive services. So the connectivity behind it is another key enabler to get more information. And last but not least, we have the peer group 3 that it has this high maturity. Again, a higher gross margin rate, but also a lot of, now I have to use my little high margin service business on top, which really drives the connection with the client, increases the lifetime value, and provides a high profitable business case. So this initial investment in the digital world is paying off with additional services and additional service growth. So, and we had a customer classification. These are customers where we take over some of their work. So we do it for them as a customer classification. The reactive customers, those are the DIY customers. They do it themselves most of the time. They order the spare parts, they have a maintenance crew, they put it together, and that's it. Very transactional. Here it becomes a long-lasting relationship with a high lifetime value and also a lower customer acquisition cost. Because once you're in, you're in. You have a 2-3 year contract. You don't have to, you have a steady relationship with them. So
25%. You only look at the 25%, the top 25%.
yes,
There also an insight that we can get of what are the type of customers in that? Are those product customers with try to expand, or are there project businesses which try to expand, or do you have that insight as well?
we have the insight, but we have a certain anonymity because when you look at site, you can figure out who these data are from, and you don't want to lose this anonymity when you do the benchmarking. So it's more the insights that we get and that we can share, but not the deductible names, basically.
No, the names. There is a reason why you probably look at the top 25%. So, and just if you do the top 50%, does that look completely different, this map?
No, but if you take an average, you shrink the numbers and it becomes less compelling. You want to learn from the best and you don't want to learn from the worst. So maybe we could have a negative session and learn from the worst and say, okay, that's how we don't want to do it. But
I'm rather interested who is in the top 25%, not the names, but the type of business.
Type of business, yeah.
That's what I'm interested in, just to see how applicable that becomes to.
Yeah, we can give some general directions in the later conversation. Not on air.
Yeah. Okay.
Percent are responsible for to be inside of the peer group 3. As of today, did you study where do you expect to be, let's say, in 3 years in terms of moving the proactive, directive to proactive?
If they follow the next slides, they can move to the more proactive side because they need to also wake up. In the service, I have met many different service managers because we at Rexroth, we sold to other service organizations of the machine builders. So we work together with them. And some of them are totally happy with being reactive. So they will never move. Unless somebody tells them, hey, you need to move or you're out, they will not move. So you need to pick the ones that are willing or have a pain point that we can fix. And I think the whole business will move into the peer group 2 and 3, but there will be a significant group of peer 1 because and those are typical companies that will struggle over time. And if they don't change and have a significant extinction level event that makes them change, they will go under. But that's also in the normal business, in the equipment sales. So you always have a group of people that will not change. And the change management is the most complicated story. So we said, okay, what did we find here? The investment drives the digitization, and it also is a very significant part of the overall strategy for the service and for the business. And it should be aligned with the business. That's one thing that we saw. It's very important to align those two. You can't have a service strategy on your own or contradicting the business strategy. So it needs to be a symbiotic strategy. And one thing that we also saw in some of the background researches is the more customer-centric you develop your products, the better they are. So ivory tower versus customer-centric development. So if you stay in-house and you find a solution without knowing the problem, you have difficulties to sell it. And the other thing is, This compelling, aligned, easy to communicate service strategy is super important. You can have the best strategy within your team. If you can't sell it to your supervisors, your C-suite, other stakeholders in the company, it will not fly. So it's not a just closed shop event. You need to go out to communicate it. So that's what we looked at in the further scope of the study. We looked at how to develop those digital service strategies effectively with a good ROI and a low risk. We already saw the answer matrix. The further you go away from your initial starting point, the more risk you load up. But this is only one perspective. And then we also said, okay, what's the impact or the influence of the current organization on the success? How do we involve the relevant stakeholders? And last but not least, how do we create an aligned, compelling digital growth strategy, and how do we communicate it? Those two things are super critical, because the best strategy that you can't tell anybody is no strategy. So Hilbrand said, I spent a lot of time with the startups, so I look at a very fast-moving industry with a lot of failures, of course. 9 out of 10 die. So not everybody makes it. But here you can learn one critical point. They have this product market fit process. So you zoom in on a problem and really try to understand the problem and understand the customer pain. So these are steps 1 and 2. You understand the market, you understand the problem. And then you create a solution, but not a full-fledged solution. You have a minimal viable product or minimal viable service in our case. And with this product, you go out and you talk to customers. And in the startup world, you need to have 100 interviews with your potential customers. And there you check whether you're on the right track. And you also check the willingness to pay. You can have a beautiful product that nobody wants to pay money for. Then it's not a commercial success. It will not fly. So this process has one big benefit. With these 100 people, you already have 100 customers that potentially will buy the product once it's done. So when you finish your real product, from prototype to finished product, you already have a commercial success, because you can show, hey, these people already bought my product. So let's translate this to our service development. And here we see a similar concept: the service redesign and the iterations. That's where we do our product market fit. And if we do it well, we will have a successful product. Then the organizational and the cultural success factors. So if you look at your culture, if you look at your organization, you check how aligned is my service business to the overall business. Are we just an appendix that can be cut off, or do we contribute value beyond margin and revenue? So, and is our organization aware of it? What's our entrepreneurial freedom as a service leader? So that's more on the cultural side. Organizational, does the service organization have their own profit and loss? Is that tracked? Is it visible to everybody? How is it shared with the equipment organization? Is this their off of their product and loss? So they feel compelled to work with the service organization, or is it standalone somewhere else and it happens and nobody asks any questions? And what's the hierarchy set up? Is it just a department somewhere in sales, or is it important enough to report to the C-suite? And then we looked at the key elements for the strategy. What do we need when we write our strategy to make it complete, cohesive, and compelling? What kind of elements do we need to have in there? And so, of course, the service vision. Where do we want to go? What's our dream when we wake up at night and we say, okay, I want to go to the moon or Mars? No, I don't want to go to Mars. I want to be the best in class service. I want to reach my customers on a daily basis. There's some certain things that we can formulate there. Who is our market? And we looked at the answer matrix. Where do we concentrate on? And who is our competitor? So I had a lot of third-party competition. They repaired my stuff. And I was like, shit, they need to go. How did we get them out? We made a contract with them. They can send it to us and they get a faster service than they would do it. And they get a share. So we just grab their business. Customer-centric approach, we already said, go from the customer back in. Oops. That's the cybersecurity service. What kind of portfolio? Oh, yes. That's the travel service that we have. What kind of portfolio do we want to do? I mean, we don't want to, if we are in reactive and we're very early stage reactive, do we want to jump all the way to business related services in the first go? I don't think so. It's not a good idea. What kind of business models can we have? Yesterday I learned what was it? Pay for stress or pay by stress. So the design was a machine, and the machine detected how the spindle was stressed, how the bearings were stressed. And if you stress your machine too much, you pay more because it significantly reduces the lifetime of the machine. So pay as you stress was the. Then what kind of technologies you need, and how do you measure your success? So in the machine building business, we had an NPS score. And in my first year, I was on the bottom of the NPS score. And I was like, okay, we need to change something. And we really fought hard to move up in the NPS score. But there's other metrics. We checked every day, we checked what kind of packages didn't make it in our service promise. And we checked every delivery that didn't make it and why it didn't make. So, and what do I do to the people? We will also talk about the skilled worker shortage and how do we upskill our people. What do we need in the digital world when we come from reactive? What do we need in the business related world? How do we get our people there, or do we need to add new people? Mike can read my mind. Yep. Mike. So here are some examples behind it. And you go into the digital world. I want to point this one out in particular. You need different people, data engineers that really do data analytics on the things that you get back once you're connected and you look into the machines, you have a wealth of information that you want to analyze and you want to understand, and you then can formulate new products out of it. Yeah, this is all. And we also took some examples. How can it be? How can we create this kind of service strategy coming from the customer? So we said, okay, we start with the research. We look at the different positions or the different pain points of the customer, and what can we contribute to make their business better, their life better. So many people, many customers, they think about life cycle cost optimization. Some of them track it really, some of them talk about it. If you have an answer how to track it, you're already a king. You can already show them here with our product, you see what your costs are. Total cost of operations. I heard it so many times when I sold my machines. What's the total cost of operations? And I always had an answer, but I wasn't sure that my answer was right, but I never told my customer. If you have a system to really prove it, that's already super cool. We also looked at some environmental impact, energy savings. And in COVID, the energy costs went through the roof. Before, nobody talked about energy, but 1 year later, everybody talked about energy cost. And our next machine generation was 60% less energy cost. So we had an answer for that. And so you can build in your customer research, you can build your service portfolio. These are just some examples. And then you make it visual when you translate it to your compelling story. You make these points. Yeah, the Americans say, keep it simple, stupid, the KISS principle. So in the first approach, you want to grab the attention, but you want to keep it simple. And then you can have a deeper discussion on these topics. And it's not only the customer, it's also inside the company. Because your stakeholders, your counterparts, they need to understand where you come from, how you contribute to the overall business success, how you are a part of their success. And if you don't talk to each other, it's already a sign that something's not working. And I had one guy who did not want to work with me. So I first worked with the others and had one lighthouse project where I really gave everything. And then the other came and said, oh, what are you doing? I want to be part of that. And then in the end, my enemy came and said, oh, why are you not talking to me? I said, I'm open. You just need to ask and you can come. But it also is a people strategy to get them engaged in your service business. And then you create the value proposition for your product. And that value proposition you can show internally with different numbers where you show profitability, revenue growth, you have the new business growth in this, and the margins and how you translate it. And you also explain the the pains of the customer to your people inside. So you sell it in two ways. You sell it to your customer in an easy to understand value proposition, but you also sell it internally. And then you have it in your strategy paper. And one component that you show there, it's the timeline, but the most important thing is the change management, how you take your organization through this change process. So everybody's on board. And this requires the continuous communication with the people. Because typically the story comes from the top and gets translated down, and the top already forgot that they have to repeat the story, and the trickle down hasn't happened yet. So the workers still haven't heard the story, and some of the story gets lost. It needs a continuous effort, and you need to have story points that you can tell in this change management story. The best communication is success stories, where you show the different success points in your journey. And when you align your story with the business strategy, there is certain things that you want to. So basically, you align your service strategy with the business strategy. And if the business strategy demands higher growth, you show ways to grow with new products, with new services, with maybe combinations of services that support equipment sale. If your organization is in trouble because of profitability, you can show how you can increase the profitability. So the talking points of the C-suite is very important to follow those talking points and to provide content for these talking points. So if you do this right and that your timing is right, you get tremendous support out from the C-suite. Because if you hit the moment where they say, okay, I'm in trouble, our profit is going nowhere, and we need to find measures. And typical measures out of the CFO office is like, oh, we need to cut heads and we need to cut expenses. If you have a clever way where you can contribute with your service without cutting and just adding new stuff, adding higher margin services, then you get their ear. So the important thing is to really align, listen into the organization and to find where you can bring in your value and find the right people. If you find the right people that will support your business, it's much easier. What's happening?
Good point in time to answer questions. So
Yeah, it's okay. We are close. Mm-hmm.
I just will build, measure, learn, cycle this cycle extra, not like a startup. Is it something that you apply? Example, at your
I used it before I even knew it was a method. I used it as a product manager, and I spent a lot of time as a product manager outside with the clients and had some prototypes with me and asked them to use it. And I watched them, observed them, and they gave me feedback. And at that time, it actually saved me because my boss told me, hey, why is the handle so big? And I said, because the workers need gloves and the gloves are clumsy. And so if you go outside and you talk to the customer and you do this repetitively, you get a much better understanding of what's going on. It sounds simple, but my colleagues didn't do it. We were like 20 product managers at the time, and most of them sat in the office and worked on their computer. So I like to go outside, so I went outside and I learned. But we didn't have the MVP methodology. So we already spent money building prototypes. Nowadays, the rapid prototyping is much easier. You can build apps in a couple of weeks for $5,000. It's easy. And you can go out and they can click and they can talk about it. You can build 3D printed tools. You can get your feedback much faster. And it saves the big disappointment. And at Bosch, we had a lot of engineers. And they like to develop things. And then the things were done. And they came to the product manager and said, oh, this is a great idea. Michael, sell it. I'm like, what is it? And who is the customer? No, it's just a great idea. You don't understand, Michael. So I took it out and got the feedback. And the feedback was negative. So this ivory tower development is a luxury that big companies have. And we had one C-suite guy. He said, at that time, it was 1990, he said, go to Gemba. Who is your customer? Go outside. And he pushed us out. They didn't have to push me out because I like to go out. But the others had to go out. But at that time, the Gemba, the customer was the distribution. So they were too far away from the user. So the feedback was already colored. So you need to really take it to the people that work with it and see if they see a benefit. And the other thing that I really learned is the willingness to pay. Because even if it's a great idea and everybody says, Michael, oh, this is cool. If you ask them how much would you pay for it, the idea becomes suddenly not so great because they don't want to pay for it. So, we're talking about the communication. Definitely, that's the key element of it, and it's in both directions. And the combination is also cool. If you have a lot of insights from your customers, you can take these insights and talk to your management team and tell them, hey, this customer, a big customer of ours, has told me this, and they want this. It's easier to sell it to your C-suite. On the other hand, it's also good to understand where they are and to have this constant dialogue. So sometimes I didn't want to talk to my C-suite because I wanted to be left alone. And some service managers want to be left alone, so they don't have their antennas out. Sometimes when I had a critical business moment where nothing worked, I didn't want to tell my bosses because I want to fix it first before I go back. So there's moments of glory when you can go, and there's moments when you shouldn't go. So picking the right moment to communicate it, but to do, I'm not pressing the button anymore, to engage them early, make them part of your mission, and ask for help is probably the best. And that's also something what I learned from the startups. They ask a lot for help and they get it for free. So you can ask for help for your leadership and show them, demonstrate what you do and what your feedback you got, and come back and make it get more share of mind in the head. Because after sales is normally afterthought. And the Swabians say, nix gelobt, yeah, something like that. So if you don't hear anything, everything is good. So they don't want to hear anything. And then it's okay. But if you are constantly there and get them involved and get them excited about it, they become your promoter. They become your ambassador. And that's where you can really grow the business. On the other side, the external communication, when you talk to your clients on a regular basis and you form partnerships with them and try out new things with them, say, okay, I have this new product. I thought you would be the ideal customer to try it out for your beta testers. You already establish a relationship with them. And even if it doesn't work, they will come back, Michael, we found this. Can you change this? And when you change it, you become their hero. So both communications have a lot of benefits. The worst thing is not to communicate. And if we just wrap it up, we've seen that the service plays an overall success, contributed to the success of the company. Sales and profitability. And profitability is what drives the investment in future things. So if without the service, there will be no future. So it's important for everybody to understand this. And if we wrap this in a real good story that we tell to our bosses, that they accept and they are part of, then they will support you because you become part of the broader business strategy. And there's like 3 components. You develop your digital services, which is the next step out of your market penetration. You work with the whole organization. You use the known strategy components because they build their own strategy papers in the same format. So you slide right in these different chapters. And then you tell it in a compelling story. And that's what I tell the startups. If it's about why am I telling the story? Why am I why is my service good for the company? And why the why is the key element to tell the compelling story. Because they need to be convinced. They need to be your ambassadors, internally and externally your clients, of course. So we already had a couple of questions, but now is the time.
I'd like to have something about return of investment. About something demonstrate return of investment. Any? Because that's a question which, after a while, automatically comes. So, what do you say about that?
Yeah. First of all, you have a service that makes your production better. So you have more output. You have less downtime. Everything, the overall equipment efficiency is higher. So you can calculate this number, but you need to calculate it to tell the story to your customers. So in your case, you need to show them how you make their power plants more effective. So less resources, used for the same output, or less CO2 emissions, or whatever you can measure or your service can do. And it can be on the savings side, or it can be on the revenue side. So and every business is different. But you know most of the little screws that you can turn to tweak it to a good result. But from my perspective, the most important thing is to show them what is possible and to measure after a year once it's implemented and really confirm this. And then use this story for the next. So it's like, because the money really makes the world go round in every industry. It's revenue, profit, return on investment. How much do I need to spend to make more money? Any other questions?
On one of the first slides, you had this growth, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, so slide number 13. The investment in digitization percentage, that is as a percentage of the revenue, or how do you?
No, here. Go back. One more. Yeah.
That's all these parameters there. They're on the right there. Growth is a percentage of revenue. Service growth. How is it all revenue based?
No, this is the revenue growth year on year.
Yeah.
This is the investment of the total revenue. This is part of the service revenue recurring. And then you have the gross margin, and then you have the service revenue per full-time employee.
So the third one is a percentage of the revenue, basically. The investment in digitization.
Yep.